Millennials can't stand David Letterman. Yes, so this is something I've been noticing for a while, that they've been posting a lot of, like Letterman owns his archives, and they've been posting a lot of his stuff on the Letterman YouTube channel. But there's also other channels that are posting that were just, big late night fans and big late show fans, and they taped like all the episodes, or majority of them, specialty episodes, whatever, and they post their own clips. And I was seeing for the last year or two that any female interview that David does, or David did, when that got posted, and you look at the comments, they can't handle it. They're losing their mind, saying that, Dave is terrible to his guests. He treats women poorly. He's so mean. They didn't want to talk about this. Why did he even bring it up? They said specifically they don't want to talk about it, and yet he kept going. Why doesn't he stop? This is abusive. And you go, what the fuck is wrong with these people? This interview aired 15 years before these people were born, and they're sitting there going, it's like, oh, look, he's making sex eyes to Terry Garr. Yeah, it's 87. It's 1987. That's what you did. But also, he's making an entertainment show. That's what you're catering to your audience, and you're trying to be funny and entertaining and whatever. And outside of that, when he's talking to some of these starlets, a lot of them, they're good to look at, but they don't really have any kind of communication skills. They're not good to talk to as guests or as people, probably, because they just have no personality in that regard. So he's got to do something. He's got to, carry the interview. He's got to make them look good while making the show look good. Like, there's a lot to do as a host. It's not just sitting there and only asking the questions that they approve. Because then you have the talk shows like you have now, like Fallon. All of his stuff, and I like Jimmy. I've known him for a long time, but his stuff is meant for YouTube now. Like, you're watching a television show where it's segmented for YouTube cuts. But he's not there to cause any kind of controversy. He's not going to make any kind of offhanded comments that might get people talking the next day on the morning news shows or online or social media or any of that stuff. It's all just, this is all approved. This is all safe. We're going to go with this. Letterman didn't do that. Conan didn't do that for the most part. Conan is a nice person. Conan is great to his guests, but when they don't deliver, they're not doing anything. Conan's got to do something, and then you go in that route of being entertaining and being funny. And for some reason, millennials don't understand this.
It's interesting, Erik. Like, you're complaining about the millennials and them not understanding the way it was, but it seems like you're not understanding the way it is. Like, you're a boomer complaining about Jimmy Fallon and the late night people today. Look, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But this really is the equivalent of what the millennials are doing.
It's not saying that what Jimmy's doing is terrible now. I'm just saying
it is terrible. Just say it. It fucking sucks.
Okay.
It's ass-kissing celebrity bullshit.
That's the boomer mentality that is going along with this. I'm stating what they know now to be what a talk show is not what it was. It's not where it originated from. And Letterman only retired not even 10 years ago, 2015. He retired. So what's 8 years ago? Come May, June, somewhere in there. 8 years ago, he retired. Not even a decade. Close to it, but not even a decade. And they think that this is ancient history. Like, I can't believe people talked like this. How is this allowed on television? How is he not being, destroyed and canceled and all of this stuff? And you go, get the fuck over yourself. It's like, if you think Dave is bad, don't watch Johnny Carson. Don't watch Jack Parr. Don't watch any of those things where they were brutally vocal towards their guests if they were terrible. Like, it's like, I think people forgot what a sense of humor is. Or they don't know. Maybe they didn't forget. They didn't know. They don't know what a sense of humor is. Because what they think is funny is so tame and protected and watered down that when you see, I'm sure, like, if you watch Superbad now, you know the movie Superbad, Bryan?
Sure.
Okay. That movie's what? Maybe got to be close to 15 years.
2008, I think.
Okay. So,
yeah,
almost 15 years. By today's standards, if you put that out now, that's problematic. That would be a huge issue for things going on now. But that was only 15 years ago. That's not that long ago. I guess in the span of the way they're not even kids. They're in their, going into their mid-30s now. They think this is, again, ancient history. Is like, I can't fathom that people would even be like this. It's like, no, this was entertainment. This was funny. And this wasn't him. Look, Dave was grumpy and he could be brutal on things, but that was Dave. That was his style. That's what he did. And he got paid a lot of money for it and got a lot of ratings for it because a lot of people did enjoy that kind of context. They did enjoy that style of performing and the shows that he was putting on. And for the fact that these clips go up on YouTube now, and it only seems to be, well, actually, there's one other thing that steps outside of that rule, but it seems the majority of it is anytime there's an interview with a female celebrity, the comments in the YouTube thing go crazy. Or if it's posted online and gets traction on Twitter, the comments go crazy where people are outraged and want him like tarred and feathered.
But a lot of times, like I remember one of these clips was him talking to Paris Hilton. I mean, she's a terrible interview. I
Correct.
think you might have some experience with that, and there's nothing you can really get out of her. And you just try. Yeah, you're doing a terrible interview right now. But the idea that, you got to try something. And I mean, that's what Letterman would do, know? And I mean, it's like for every clip where it's like, what was it like? Was it Maya Rudolph who said I was upset at the way he said my name? It was somebody whose name, maybe it was somebody.
I like Maya Rudolph up until that very moment.
Yeah, it's the same thing. You're just like it's not, but you don't even see in the clip like, oh yeah, it looks like it's a very painful moment. I mean, it's just he said your name wrong.
Letterman, when he did late night, nobody was doing what he did, and his show became really hot, really fast, really successful. So when you're at that level, like the only one that was bigger than him was Johnny Carson. And Johnny Carson was the only game in town for almost 30 years. You couldn't do anything unless you got Johnny's blessing, not just for a comedian, but for an actor and all of this stuff. Being on Carson was like, necessary for your career in Hollywood or a musician or whatever you were doing. So you had to do Johnny Carson, and he could do whatever the fuck he wants. Letterman revolutionized the game with late night after Carson. It was something that was never done before, and he became the top dog, even when he didn't get the Tonight Show, and Leno got it, and then Letterman had to go to CBS, and they were pitting against each other. For the longest time, Letterman was still the top on all of this stuff. So when he's the number one guy or he's the most successful guy, you gotta do his show because at that time it meant something. Now going on any of the shows does nothing for your career. It's nice that you can get on. Maybe it'll be a good YouTube clip, but it's not selling your comedy tickets. It's not selling your movie tickets. It's not pushing anything forward by being on these shows because nobody talks about it the next day. And that's Letterman was like the last of that era. Maybe even Conan. Conan stretched it out a little bit even after Letterman, before Conan decided to hang up his show. That's what you do. That was the main platforms in the United States, at least, to go to promote your wares for whatever was going on. So they could do whatever they want. And I'm not saying that, it justified Letterman being a dick to Cher or things. Look, he was going through a lot of shit at the time. He was still drinking at the time, which he's always talks about, and like he was heavily drinking during those days. But it was also the 80s. It was a totally different time. So you can't go back there and kind of rewrite everything that was going on. It was what it was. And now it's not that anymore, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. But he was the top guy. So when he's doing this, you have to go and do it. You have to play ball. You can't be fucking treated with kid's glove all the time now. And now they do. And everything sucks. Everything sucks. When you see those interviews, you see those clips, whatever. They're doing the hot wing show, which I'm not even shitting on the guy for doing the what is it called, fiery ones or something? The hot ones. Hot ones. Yeah. The hot one show. It's a unique concept. I get it. It gets people to the table to talk about things, sets them off their guard a little bit, and then they're having a good time. But that's the extra step you have to go now to break down that fluff. That whitewash shit that you're seeing in entertainment now, where everything has to be sensitive and you got to cater and coddle the guests because they can't be inconvenienced or they can't be insulted or they can't be anything that puts them outside of their comfort zone. But then they don't talk, and then it's not interesting. So
is it safe to say that all of us, maybe, and in general, people who liked Letterman probably liked that he was mean. It was one of the endearing things about him, is that,
it was.
And he wasn't cruel, but he would say, you do a monologue, you say mean things about people in the news, you bag on people who are, out there in public. I loved when CBS wanted him to have like Survivor contestants on, and he wouldn't even let them on the couch. He'd make them go stand over. It was just like the contempt he had for people on his show. I was just like, I'm not interested in what any of these Survivor people have to say, but I like that he's not letting them sit on the couch. It just made it more interesting. And I think that maybe that's the bigger thing, God forbid these people who are finding Letterman clips find clips of the show you used to work for or old Howard Stern clips. That's way worse than almost anything that Dave did.
Well, can I talk about Lindsay Lohan real fast?
Oh, sure.
Because
yeah.
I'll say this just to make a point that you can build off of.
We can start with Lindsay Lohan. I have her video comments here too. We can start with that if you like.
Now, my wife is a millennial.
She is?
She is. Okay. So when we watch
good for you
old TV shows from the 70s into the 80s, there's lots of times where, and she's not offended, but there's lots of times where I hear like, oh my God, like she can't believe that they're saying these things on TV. Like that's the way it used to be. So when these millennials are used to the fucking saccharine bullshit from people like Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon, it really does have to be jarring to look back. Because when I'm watching this Lindsay Lohan video, I'm like, it is awkward. It is uncomfortable. Like there's no
Is this the rehab video you're talking about?
This is, him talking about rehab. There's no denying that he makes it very awkward and she does not want to talk about this. Personally, I don't care. But you can see how somebody who's raised on like this generation of late night would be shocked at last generation's.
Right. Well, here's what they're forgetting.
Ours was better, obviously.
Maybe they're not forgetting. Here's what they maybe don't understand is that Paris, Lindsay Lohan, Nicole Richie, women like that were purposely living in the spotlight, doing and saying horrendous things. There's video out there. You can find it where for a while Paris was just constantly saying the N-word. She was just doing it. There, you can find the clips. They were out there.
She's trying to get somebody else canceled.
They were out there not wearing underwear. So anytime they were getting out of some kind of like a tinted SUV or a sports car or something, they would slide the legs. So the paparazzi were getting upskirt shots. They were wearing
lots of nip slips.
Nip slips. Yeah, a lot of things like that. They were purposely doing that. It wasn't an accidental situation. You can tell when it's an accidental situation when they're constantly on all those celebrity blog sites in the late 2000s. Mid to late 2000s, where every day there's a new nip slip, a shirt was too tight, where it's obviously that's what they're doing, piercings, all that kind of stuff, where you were seeing all of this essentially for the first time, really, and especially in such excess that they were doing this. They lived this life where they were drunk driving, they were doing substances, they were just constantly at these places where paparazzi would be or people were taking video and taking photos so that they would get this exposure, because at that point any exposure was good exposure, be it positive or negative received. It was considered a plus for their career. That this was also the era of the sex tape, where Paris had she says she didn't have anything to do with it. People still don't believe that, but she had the sex tape out. Kim Kardashian made her career off that sex tape. Her dad was famous, yes, but Kim became Kim when that sex tape hit, and then everything else she did past that defined her. These are the women who lived that kind of life. So when they're getting treated as such and asked about these things, she was in rehab. Lindsay Lohan had her dad constantly like threatening her mom and her sister and all this. And that whole family was just Long Island white trash that was constantly in the news for some other, any reason they could get into the news coverage. She had all these issues, came out of rehab. Why wouldn't you talk to her that she came out of rehab? That's the reason she's there. She may have I forget what the real reason was that she was there. Maybe she had a project or something she was promoting, but who the fuck remembers that? They remember this clip of him talking to her about a rehab and her being upset that he's talking to her about rehab. But that's why you're there. You know, what else is he going to talk to you about that? Though. But that's not up to her at this point.
She purposely... come on, E-Rock. If I started talking to you about something you didn't want to talk about on this show, like
right.
you would cut it out, or you would be like, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. So when she gets up on a stage in front of a nation full of people and is sort of like shanghaied with the rehab questions,
no, I understand.
You can understand
that.
why she would be upset. And that's all I'm saying is, like, people today, when they're used to such bullshit, they find that kind of shit jarring, because they're like, it is like, nobody, like, the herd doesn't like that uncomfortable feeling, and that's what he's doing. Now,
right.
Personally, I don't care, because I think Lindsay Lohan's a piece of shit. But you can understand how the softer, more sensitive people of today would view that and be like, how did it used to be like this?
Right.
Because they don't want that shit. They just want to be angry at straight white guys. They don't want to be fucking angry at Lindsay Lohan. They don't want to be angry at any of the celebrities.
They just
want to be angry at us. That's Christian shit instead of spouting our opinions. You worked on Letterman, right?
No, I worked with Dennis Miller
Letterman
for a long time, and I interned on Conan. So that
you worked where for a long time? I didn't hear that part.
I worked with Dennis Miller for most of the last 20 years. But you want to talk about somebody whose on-screen persona was designed on the idea that they were, usually kind of a dick and a smartass.
Sure.
It's him. So. No, I was always this all came about because I was just a fan of Letterman, and Erik and I were having a conversation about this very thing, that he was going to talk about how millennials can't handle, that level of meanness that I think is still fairly tame. I mean, this was on network television in the 80s and 90s. It could only be so mean. It's not brutal.
I wouldn't even call like Letterman talking to Lindsay Lohan. I wouldn't call it mean.
Yeah,
I would say awkward at worst.
And I'm sure they said to the publicist, like, look, he's going to ask her about it. Well, we don't want him to. It's like, well, yeah, he's going to. Okay, well, she's going to come on anyway. And, the publicist might have said
with the Survivor people.
Yeah, or the Survivor people. But it's like, yeah, well, this is the most interesting thing about her. How can I, she doesn't have to answer. She can react how she wants to, but she should know that he's going to ask, hey, so how was rehab? Did you have fun?
Right.
If people didn't ask the wrong questions, we wouldn't have that footage of Mike Tyson calling that interviewer a piece of shit.
That was
remember
amazing.
that. I mean, I just rewatched it the other day. I was like, yeah. I was like, this is insane, man. Like, I would be so afraid.
Dave was not a dumb guy. Dave didn't ask dumb things. Dave would ask roundabout things, and then if they made a comment, he'd play off that, because he was also a stand-up comic for many years. So he knew how to ad-lib. He knew how to embellish. He knew how to exaggerate. And he would also go for shots. When the window opened, he took those shots. People don't take those shots anymore because they're afraid that, I won't get any other guests, or I'm afraid of offending somebody, or I'm afraid social media is going to get mad at me. Letterman didn't have social media to worry about. He's not the same way now, and he shouldn't be the same way now in his 70s, 80s, however old he is. But back then, he didn't have to fly that way, so he did what he did, and that's why he was successful at what he did, because nobody was doing what Dave did. All right, the Lindsay Lohan video. Let's read some of these comments here so you can see what we're talking about. It's just us talking, but let's give you some proof as to people not being able to handle things. So the interview where David Letterman is talking to Lindsay Lohan was from 2013. She had just gotten out of rehab, and she went on Dave's show. So he was talking about rehab, and she was getting uncomfortable. And I think she said something along the line. She goes, I expressed in the pre-interview that I didn't want to talk about this. And Dave was saying, it's like, well, how could we not talk about this? Because the news was covering the fact that she just got out of rehab. So you're here. We need to at least say something about it. We can't just ignore, because then Dave gets a ton of shit. It's like, how come you didn't address this at all? You didn't even bring up anything to do with what was going on. So here's some of the comments. From what I could identify, I'll say male, female, based on the commentators, and then there's unknowns. Female comments. This is a female person. Damn, I would have walked right off the stage. Male. Damn, I would have walked right off the stage. Female. What a horrible way to treat a human being. She handled his rudeness very well. Male. The audience is laughing is the worst part of this. That drove me nuts. The audience laughing at this. What is the audience supposed to do? She's being a bumbling idiot, and he's trying to make something out of there. The audience is there for entertainment. They're not there to be her friend.
The audience laughed when Michael Richardson was apologizing.
That's
right?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to bring up. Yeah, because
so they don't know what
Jerry was there, and they
at.
brought Michael Richards on the phone,
right?
Which was already weird. But people didn't know what he was apologizing for because they didn't know the story. And and that's the great clip of Jerry. Like
don't laugh at that.
It's not funny. Don't laugh at that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you lead off by calling black people Afro-Americans, it's like the apology loses steam real quick.
Right. Let's see. Female. We didn't discuss this in the pre-interview, end quote. No, we didn't. That should have been the end of it. How dare he? This female in her photo looked very fat, so I put that in the comment, in the notes here. Fat female. This is so gross. She was shoved into a corner here. He was forcing these issues until she addressed them, which she clearly didn't want to. It's disgusting. Then she posted separately again, same fat female. An idiot could see that she was uncomfortable with what was being asked of her. Either he was too blind to see this, or he could see it and didn't care. That woman could have had a breakdown right there on that stage with what was being said to her. But she desperately tried to hold it together as she knew all eyes were on her. She even said she hadn't discussed this in the pre-interview, so obviously she wasn't expecting this. That's bullshit, by the way. She was so, like Bryan said, she just came out. What else was going to be discussed? She knew this was going to be brought up here. She obviously wasn't expecting this. She just wants to promote her movie, and instead she I'm sorry, this is really tiny. She got inundated with ignorant questions about her rehab. This was appalling. Now, I could say that was fake. I could say that somebody was trolling. But I don't think so, because there's so many other comments that were like this. Now, maybe it's a mass troll. Who knows? But it seems, from my assessment, doesn't seem to be a troll for all of this. Here's another male comment. You go, Lindsay. I'm sorry for the way the world treated you when you just needed love and support. She ain't gonna fuck you, dude. I hate that stuff.
I mean, she might now.
Yeah. She's married. She's having a kid.
She just got married, right?
Yeah. She's having a kid. She just flew back. She had to do something here in New York, some show, and then she had to fly back to Saudi Arabia so she could have her baby.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why does she have to have
nothing that sounds weird?
I don't know.
That,
I saw that headline either last night or this morning, where she was doing something, then had to fly back to Saudi Arabia so she could have her baby. So apparently she's having her kid over there.
Well, good for her.
Yeah, good for her. Final one here for the Lindsay Lohan one, a male poster. I'm so glad that we've reached a point where addiction is no longer considered a joke, and that we are starting to take the mental health of ourselves and others more seriously. This was a terrible interview, and it was obviously bringing up some terrible emotions for Lindsay. I hope she can make it through to the other side. What, you want her to die? Okay, fine. She's a talented actress and had a great personality. She shouldn't lose any more years to this disease. Fuck you and fuck these people.
It's interesting that people comment at all. Like I'm not a commenter. I never write comments on anything. But when you see, like, especially on Twitter, I'm like, oh, okay, there's fucking 2,300 comments on this. Why do people who's reading this shit? Who's reading all these comments?
Oh, they want to come back to their YouTube channel later in that day and see, oh, I got 18 likes. Oh, I got 40 likes because of my comment. People like that's it's a dopamine kind of thing. I think. Yeah, I think so.
I need some dopamine.
Yeah.
We did a show on Tom Steve Dave. We did our first video show with Joe DeRosa, and I'm to be honest with you, I didn't go back and check, so I'm not sure how many people actually watched it or liked it. But if that's the case, where I'm like, oh, I got a bunch of likes and it's going to be a little shot of dopamine, I might try it.
It's a quick fix, but it's nothing that lasts. So, like, that's all anybody cares about now. They're not looking for their mental health and well-being in the long run. They're looking for the quick fix now to make me feel better at this moment and keep it going. And it's
so YouTube is like crack.
It's that old term, chasing the dragon. You know, it's like I'm trying to get that high that I'll never get again, and I'm constantly looking for it.
But it's like crack that's cut with, rat poison or something, because he's like, you get the dopamine of like, oh my God, look how many views my YouTube video got. And then you read the comments and you're like, oh,
they all want me to die.
Yeah, they don't tend to take the time to say,
Bryan
great video.
Posting.
Love the show, Bryan. No, the comment's going to be, somebody who's like, I hope you die today.
Yeah.
Let's jump over to the Paris Hilton video from 2007 where Letterman grilled Paris with questions about her stint in jail. Now, look, she had just gotten out of prison, and her team, her publicist, worked this out to get her on Letterman. This was the first thing she did after coming out of prison. She went on Dave's show. This was very calculated. This was specifically because of this. And the dumb idiots in the chat room and in the not the chat room, in the comments section are all saying again, like, how terrible. Why would he bring this up? She just went through such trauma. Do you think she really wants to hash on this? And it's like, she just came out. She went on a talk show. What do you fucking think she's doing?
Just when you thought Paris Hilton couldn't get any more hateable.
Yeah.
She tries to posit herself as a victim, and you're like, okay, I hate her more now.
When that happened
when
that came out like a year or two ago, Paris Hilton came out and said about her time on Letterman and how mean she was and everything. Paris did anything she possibly could in the 2000s to get attention, to be in the spotlight, to be the I forgot what they were called, socialites. She would do anything for attention, positive or negative. So this was just another round of Paris doing Paris. That's also her sex tape name, coming onto Letterman for this type of attention. So here are the responses to the Paris Hilton interview with Letterman on YouTube. Male response: he's being such a jerk in interviews with her, mocking her about when she was in jail. She kept her pose astoundingly. She accepted the fact that she had broken the law and fully accepted responsibility for her actions. I'm sure several guests never returned to see him. Without them, he never would have had a show. Not the case at all.
I would imagine that if he didn't have to have guests, he would have probably liked to have comedians on and some bands.
Oh,
but
yeah.
if he never had to have on,
these people,
Lindsay Lohan or Paris Hilton, if they said, you know what, Dave, we're going to take the celebrity interviews out of the show. Can you get the gang to come up with some more comedy instead? I think he would have maybe done the show for 10 more years.
He would have been back on the roof throwing shit off the top of the building and seeing it smashed down there on 49th Street. Let's see. Another male. It's like he was so Feighning?
Feigning?
Like pretending.
Feigning. Okay. It was like he was feigning so much unpreparedness as compared to how ready with questions he was for the first interview. This was very unprofessional. A female comment: that interview was absolutely the worst thing to watch. I can't imagine how she must have felt afterward. The audience was outrageous and as cruel as Letterman. So now the audience is a fucking problem too, because they were sitting there and enjoying this. This is an unknown gender. Letterman publicly compromised his integrity, obvious from the time the show aired. This was a sad reflection of him, not you, Paris. And that's another thing. When they're writing comments, thinking the people they're supporting are reading these fucking comments. Yeah. They're never seeing this shit. Thanks for speaking out about this painful experience. There is nothing funny about shaming and bullying. Light shines through respect, kindness, and grace. Oh, fuck you. You're blocked. Another unknown. People need to acknowledge that these people were not doing this to an empty audience. It wasn't a case of one or two bad apples. The whole laughing audience was complicit in this. People are now pretending they never participated in this stuff and someone had to be lying. All these people had audiences. They're all responsible. Can you believe that?
That commenter who said this is the worst thing to watch, that I believe it was a she, should look for some Mexican cartel beheading videos just to see if this is still the worst thing that you could watch.
I've seen several of those, and turns out the cartel shit is worse.
Really?
Yeah, I can't believe it.
Okay.
What about I think David, you know what, Bryan, agree to disagree. David Letterman is the real criminal.
What about stoning videos when those women are stoned over in the Middle East? Why are those women allowing men to treat them like that? They should have more self-respect. A woman
they should definitely stand up for themselves.
Yeah, they should be standing up for themselves. These savages don't know what they're doing. They're all complicit. They're all responsible for this. This was inappropriate. This was disgusting. Yeah, like they had a say in all of that stuff. So dumb. I'm going to wrap this up here. A male poster. Letterman is an outdated, misogynistic joke. Female. And it's worse when you're seeing guys post this shit. Because are you thinking they got to be gay that they're posting this? Or are they just millennial and they're soft? I
don't think. I think they're probably gay. Like, gay guys are more into this kind of drama and shit, I believe. Okay. Whereas like if I think back to like my 20s and 30s, if somebody was like, hey, what do you think about this celebrity? I'd be like, what are you talking about? Let alone go to a computer and like get pissy and write a comment about it.
All right, fair enough. Female commenter, Letterman sending her a case of wine seems very backhanded as an apology because she had to go to jail for an alcohol-related thing in the first place. If Dave was really that sadistic and he's like, she just got out of jail because of an alcohol-related incident, and you sent her a case of wine as an apology, that is hilarious. Now, if it was being sent as being sincere and everything, that's fine. But I can actually see where this person posting like, they're upset about that, but in reality, that's fucking hilarious. That's hilarious. Yeah. That's like if somebody you knew that got out of got out of fat camp and they lost all this weight, and then you sent them like a butcher box or Omaha steaks or something like that. You know, good for you. Keep up the good work. Let's see. She went to jail for alcohol-related things in the first place. So, in my opinion, it was more a jab at her disguised as a gift and an apology. Like, sorry, but not really. And then the final one for this one that I pulled is an unknown. Crazy how us millennials are taking back what was wronged to us. That's not even a proper sentence. Hope we make it better for the younger generations. That seems like a trolling thing. But it got a lot of likes. There was a lot of thumbs up for it. They can't handle the fact that everything is not super supportive. Everything is not championing the other person, you know, and rallying behind them to lift them up, and everybody needs to feel good and we all need to be positive, right, gang? And no, he's shitting on people when they need to be shit on. He makes offhanded comments and he's a grump. But that was the allure to Dave. Everybody knew that Dave was a grumpy person, and Dave was a uncomfortable person in his own right. But he made it into funny, and that's what funny is. Not what it's supposed to be, but that is what funny is. That is a level of funny what he was doing, and he did it to the best of his abilities. Looking back at it now, do you think it aged well? I still think it's perfectly fine. I know other people don't. Apparently, these people in the comments don't. But I think if you look back at some of the, one thing that breaks this rule about the females guests being all this commentary about him being mean to them, he used to do a bit where he would be at a fast food place and he'd be wearing the drive-through headset. And he'd be making fun of the people who were coming in to order stuff, or would be trying to upsell them or try to tell them to go to another place while they were there. And I saw some comments in those videos too where they're like, why is he it's like, how could they allow this? Him being so mean. It's like, what company would lend their name to him doing this stuff? It's like Taco Bell did it. McDonald's did it. A few other places did it. And they got a lot of great promotion out of doing this collaboration with The Late Show. It's like, get the fuck over yourselves. Like, you can't, like, nobody can understand a joke anymore. At least according to social media. People in real life, if you talk to people in real life, Bryan can, you can. If we weren't even doing this, we were just talking off the air here with stuff, we'd be laughing at certain things. People get it, but online, people don't seem to think that they're allowed to be okay with this stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of people's online persona is like they feel like it needs to be this idealized version of themselves of like, well, I want to be the most accepted by the most people. So let me, stand up for these people. And as you were talking about it, I was just like, did maybe this generation not realize, what a piece of shit Paris Hilton was. I mean, go
get footage from A Simple Life where they're pouring bleach all over somebody's pool table because they think it's funny.
Yeah,
and then tell me that she's not the cunt that deserves it.
Or look for the clip where she's staying at this family's house and causing the mom of the house there all kinds of problems. And it turns out the house they were staying at, there's a pop singer named Kesha, who's pretty famous. It was her house. It was before Kesha even blew up, and they're treating Kesha like she's this dumb hick, and wearing ugly clothing and will never be anything. And then all of a sudden Kesha becomes a pop star in her own right for all this stuff. Watch The Simple Life and watch what pieces of shit those two are. Her and Nicole Richie.
That's okay though. The Kesha thing is okay because women being mean to other women, totally acceptable.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And who's meaner to other women than women, right?
The housewives.
That's acceptable.
I mean,
but a guy on TV, the girl knows what she's coming in for. She knows David Letterman. It's not her fucking first rodeo. Like, adapt in the moment. You're a fucking professional. Act like it.
There are countless other examples of this kind of stuff in the commentary. If you go and look at any kind of Letterman clip where he's talking to an actress, to a pop star, to some female of somewhat importance at the time, read the comment section. You can see the downvotes, you can see the dislikes, you can see which essentially seems to be gay guys and fat women or regular women just posting in there saying their dislike of how Dave handled anything to do with a female guest. And you can look at it, you can laugh at it, you could get angry at it and know that they're all wrong. And then you feel better about yourself and you can move on with your life, because that's about as much time you should be spending. We did it because of the show, but in real life, look at it, get angry, laugh at it, whatever you want to take from it, and just know that it's there and go, man, these people are ridiculous. I'm glad I don't live my life like that.